Broken furniture, 8 unanswered calls. I shattered keys left in the hall. Oh my God, you're gone. Oh my God, she's gone. Missing persons reported and put on file. The detective said it may take a while. Posters printed and mounted on every pole. I can't picture her seeing a soul. Oh my God, she's gone. And I don't know if I can muster up the will to carry on. 'Cause I still dream about her face amidst a glow of better days. I hope that she's okay. Oh, sweet, where have you gone? Oh, dear, where have you gone? Oh, sweet, where have you gone? Oh, dear, where have you gone? Just be patient's what I'm told. But these leads are unsold. Not long till they declare this case cold. Oh my God, she's gone. And we still don't know where they took you, who they are, what they've done. 'Cause I prefer to fantasize. It's easier to live that lie than wonder if you're still alive. Oh, sweet, where have you gone? Oh, dear, where have you gone? Oh, sweet, where have you gone? Oh, dear, where have you gone? And I dream you're also here and I'm away just out of fear. Maybe I'm a future seer. And
What's up, everyone? How's it going?
you'll find me.
It's been a while since I've streamed. Many of you maybe don't know me. My name is Axioms. Some of you might know me as PX Pride. Some of you might know me as Leo. Some of you might know me as VLS. I'm a man of many names. I don't really care what you call me. I used to stream fighting game tournaments almost exclusively. I used to stream tournaments for a game called Rivals of Aether, and then tournaments for a game called Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, and those games used to be a huge part of my life. And I still love fighting games a lot, but at some point I lost the drive to do those tournaments. Partially because I started overthinking in terms of how to make the best possible tournament, and I started thinking way too hard about it and executing way too little, and soon the tournaments kind of fell apart. But I'm back with, I think, a different kind of content nowadays, and I'm excited to try this out. Over the past few months, I've been getting, well, I guess maybe over the past year, I've been getting deep into a combination of two things. I've been getting deep into vibe coding, and I've been getting deep into meditation. I want to talk a bit about those two. So, let's talk about vibe coding. So my background is in computer science. I was an AI researcher for many years. I actually stopped being an AI researcher to do the fighting game tournaments, but I'm kind of back in it now. And AI has definitely changed a lot since I first got into research, because the first time I got into research was it 15 years ago at this point? I think it was 15 years ago at this point that I first got into research, and obviously the state of AI looked very different back then. Everything was much more open, everything felt much more unsolved. You didn't have these crazy LLMs that seemed like magic. In fact, you barely even had neural networks at all back then. right? Like the models that we take for granted these days were considered almost a joke back then. It's kind of interesting. People didn't believe that these neural networks could work at all. It took advancement after advancement. Is that a word? Advancement. It took advance after advance for neural networks to finally get to a point where they were scalable and where we were able to see really powerful results from them. So when I started back in 2010, we were still using neural networks that had a type of neuron that was really, really poor for actual learning. These networks didn't train very well at all. You could feed them a lot of data and they would just get stuck. They wouldn't learn very well at all. Then a year later, I believe it was a year later, someone introduced something called the rectified linear unit, which is a different type of neuron that learns much, much better. And then a year after that, a few talented folks figured out how to put these neural networks on GPUs. And then these neural networks became much, much faster at training. And that's when you guys might have heard about something called ImageNet. That's when neural networks started getting really good at recognizing images. And then over the years, one by one, progress was made in various ways. And now we have these giant, crazy large language models that do all sorts of insane stuff. And it's a very different field of AI to come back to. Is this the Rivals of Ether channel? It was the Rivals of Ether channel. I may do a bit of Rivals in the future, but it's not really why the reason I'm back. I am interested in exploring some other things now. I may do some more fighting games in the future. I mean, I still love fighting games, don't get me wrong. I still play Melee almost every day. I love Melee, I love platform fighters, but I think there's a lot of other cool stuff I want to show now. So now we have these large language models that are extremely powerful, and there's been some skepticism about them over the past few years, which I think is totally understandable. I was extremely skeptical about them myself. In fact, I'm still skeptical of most of them, to be honest. But a few months ago, a certain product came out called Claude Code, which proved itself to be just far and away better than any other language model when it came to writing code. And as someone who's really interested in doing AI research and interested in building better and better models, but isn't very interested in actually doing the programming himself. I mean, I am a competent programmer, but I just don't really like doing it. It's not the reason I do computer science. I love design, I love research, I love the scientific method. But I don't really like programming that much. And beyond just not liking programming that much, programming is often like the bottleneck for these kinds of things in terms of how much time they take. Especially when you're a single person doing this by yourself. I try to do as much independently as possible because that's just the way I like to do things. But now that Claude Code is so powerful at writing programs for us, it's, I think, really opened up possibilities in terms of how we can use AI to make our lives better. And that is a theme that I want to explore in these streams. And so when I talk about how AI can make our lives better, what do I mean? Well, fundamentally, what do we want AI to do? Right? I mean, people have all these like fear scenarios about AI, but what do we actually want AI to do? We want AI to replace all the labor that is boring. We want AI to do all the stuff that we don't want to do. That's the goal of AI, right? You guys have probably heard this term AGI or strong AI or the singularity. These are all kind of related concepts, often used interchangeably. And what these terms mean is it's the point at which AI has surpassed human intelligence, is self-improving, and solves as much of our problems for us as possible, allowing us to do things that are meaningful to us. I think it's easy to get lost in the tech and forget that the purpose of the tech is to create the space to pursue meaning. And that is a theme that I've been thinking a lot about in my own life over the past, especially the past few months, but over the past year in general. And that's essentially the reason I've come back to streaming. I want to explore these themes on stream. And so what do I mean by finding meaning? Well, about a year ago, I got deep into meditation. I've been meditating off and on since I was a kid. I think the first time I got exposed to meditation was when I was 11, but it was a very, very shallow idea of what a meditation was, right? It was almost like a caricature of what meditation was. Like, you probably, if you never meditated before, you might just kind of imagine some guy with his eyes closed breathing and focusing on his breath, whatever that means. Perceiving, whatever that means, right? I think meditation can feel like a lot of woo at first. But I tried it off and on for a while. I hadn't really gotten any results. Sometime last year, I was going through an emotionally difficult time. My dog, my dog was dealing with some health issues. He had like a slip disc in his back, essentially, and that was really difficult for me to deal with. He was in a lot of pain. He couldn't really move that much, and on top of that, I had some sort of conflicts going on in personal relationships, and that forced me to slow down and really think about where it is I'm trying to find meaning in my life and where it is I'm trying to find happiness. And through the process of introspecting and through the process of overthinking, because that's something I do a lot, I overthink a lot. Through the process of overthinking, I eventually asked myself the question, well, what happens if I just stop thinking? Because I think when you're pursuing meaning, when you're trying to figure out what it means to be happy, it's easy to just think and think and think in this logical way, trying to logically derive some answer. But as you think more and more and more, you get further away from your fundamental axioms, which are your emotions. And I think the more I thought about everything that was going on, the more I kept trying to think about how to structure my life for the best, the further away I got from actually understanding what my true self wanted. So I finally got to a point where I asked myself, what happens if I stop thinking? I have so much anxiety. I'm overthinking so much. It's so stressful. But what happens if I just stop thinking, since the thinking seems to be pain? So I stopped thinking. I think that was probably the first time in my entire life that I just stopped thinking. I didn't even know that was possible, to be honest. I didn't know it was possible to stop thinking. But I stopped thinking. And just paid attention to what was left. What's left when you have no thoughts in your brain? Well, what's left is the sensations. What do I mean by the sensations? I mean the sensations throughout your body, the physical sensations, the sensations on your skin, maybe from a fan, maybe from the hot air around you, maybe from something else, maybe from the clothes you're wearing that have a certain texture. The sensations visually that I see, the sensations auditorily that I hear. And I focus on these because once I stopped thinking, that was all that was left to focus on. So I stopped thinking. My mind was clear for the first time ever. I was like 30 years old and my mind was clear for the first time ever. And I stopped thinking and I just started focusing on these sensations. And I started focusing on the sensations in my body. And in that moment, I recognized that there was so much tension within me. There was so much stress in my body. And stress was always something I intellectualized. So like, I'm stressed because I'm thinking about all these things, and because I'm trying to solve all these problems, because I have this goal that I haven't met yet. So I was stressed about it. But I was detached from the actual emotional experience of stress, the actual physical sensations of it throughout my body. I was not grounded in the actual experience that I was trying to deal with. And once I actually felt intimately what that stress felt like, slowly, one by one, I was able to release tension in muscle after muscle. Not every single muscle, but a lot of them. A lot of the tension in my body dissipated. And I felt peace. I felt relaxation. I felt that I had intentionally relaxed, and that is not something that I had ever done before. I'm not saying I never felt relaxed before. I absolutely felt relaxed before. You know, I think when you're hanging out with a good friend, having a good conversation, that can feel relaxing. When you're sitting by a nice lake, that can be relaxing. But these are all external things. I had never made an intentional decision to just internally relax. I didn't even know that was possible until that very moment. Yo, we have a raid. Is that from Tech Balls? Yo, what's up, homie? It's good to see you, man. Thanks for the raid. So I intentionally relaxed for the first time. And in that moment, I felt peace. I felt tranquility. And I realized that this was such a fundamental thing. Like, this was just me paying attention to the sensations that were always there and not overthinking it. This was such a fundamental thing that I realized there must have been something basic missing about how I was approaching trying to find meaning in my life, how I was trying to find happiness in my life. And so meditation and vibe coding have been the two major areas of my life that I've been focusing on a lot over the past year. And yo, we have a subscription from Dog Lover. Thank you so much, homie. Meditation and vibe coding are the two pillars I've been focusing a lot over the last year. And I think over that time, I've had a lot of very interesting experiences with both of them and the way that they relate to each other. Because the stress of wanting to be productive and wanting to be good is now offset by the extreme amounts of productivity that vibe coding allows for. And vibe coding, creating that space in my mind, now allows for things like meditation and finding inner peace so that I can actually truly enjoy the life that I'm living. And so that's what the stream is going to be about going forward. I'll probably do some fighting games in the future. I mean, I still love fighting games. It's still part of my life. Like I said, I play Melee almost every day. Hell, I might play a little bit Melee on stream later. Well, we don't know. I don't know yet. I'm going with the flow. I don't know. But I think today I want to focus mostly on the topics of vibe coding and meditation. So let me switch screens for a second. Did the podcast with the homies and then show the love after since I saw you were live. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, you came in at the perfect time. I basically just started streaming. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's funny. I made my YouTube thumbnail how I stopped overthinking, but I was honestly sitting here for like 10 minutes overthinking this stream before I hit the start streaming button. I was thinking, do I have all the words correct in my mind in the order that I want to say them? Which is a ridiculous thing to think. That's completely the antithesis of what streaming should be. Streaming should be about... Hey Krish, how's it going? Streaming should be about authenticity and it should be about flow state. But I was sitting here thinking for many minutes about how I wanted to structure all these thoughts in my mind. Shalini, it's good to see you. I didn't know you followed this stream. Or this YouTube channel. Hey, I started and that's the important part. Yeah, the first step is to start. The first step is to start. This is something people have been telling me for a long time. The first step is to start, and it's something that historically I've been pretty bad at. At least for some things, I've been pretty bad at it. And I think this is something that a lot of people can relate to. They have this big project in their mind that they want to do, but they just can't get started. They don't know how to get started. They don't know what that first step to take is. And there's multiple reasons for why this happens. Part of it is that when you have this gigantic project in your mind, it's this complex object that you're trying to detangle in your brain, and you have this maze that you're walking through in your own mind trying to figure out what the heck is going on. That's one reason that it's hard to get started. Another reason is the fear of being imperfect. That's something I struggle with. I absolutely struggle with the fear of being imperfect. I want to look back at everything I do with pride. And when you start something for the first time, it's almost certainly going to be terrible. It's almost certainly going to be pretty bad. And it's going to have to get better at it over time. And embracing that is something that I find difficult and something that I had to work on over a long period of time through meditation. Hey, King Gray, it's good to see you, man. Another thing that I think prevents people from getting started is not even being sure what to get started on. Like, is this the correct project? Am I on the right life path? Is this really what's going to bring me happiness? These kinds of existential questions, at least for me, are a huge part of why I struggle to get started. Like I'll give you an example. I've been working on... So I released my first EP 2 years ago. And since then, I've gone through many different EP concepts. By EP, I mean like a short album, like a short musical album, for those of you who don't know what an EP is. I've gone through so many different concepts and been like, this seems interesting, scrap it. This seems interesting, scrap it. Because each one felt like, this isn't quite what I wanted. It isn't quite the perfect thing that I envisioned in my mind. It's not quite what I imagined as like, oh, this is the absolute correct thing for me to do. And I fear investing the time and energy and perhaps even money into whatever it may be to get started, right? I think that's very difficult. And the only way that I've found to overcome that is to find a place of faith in a process. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that every time I would overthink, is this project really what I wanted to do? Is this project really what's worth my time? It's a lack of faith in myself in terms of understanding where I want to go, right? It's a lack of faith in a coherent identity and a lack of faith in a coherent idea of what meaning is. I'll switch from project to project because each one seems to have a different kind of value to me. I'll say, this kind of music makes me feel peaceful. This kind of music makes me feel energetic. This kind of music makes me think about things in the world differently. Which of these is best? That's a useless thing to think about, but it's the kind of overthinking that I would do all the time. And it's something I still struggle with to some extent, but I think the only way to overcome this is to ground yourself. So when I meditated last year, or when I guess broke through on my meditation last year, and I was able to shut off that internal monologue and just feel the sensations that I was experiencing, that was a form of ground truth. That was a snapshot of the experience I was having in my life, both internal and external. And then I have some subjective evaluation of that experience. And that's not like a intellectual cognitive thing. I'm not like thinking super hard about it, just like, does this feel good or does this feel bad? Thinking is obviously very useful. I'm not at all saying you shouldn't think. In fact, I probably advocate for thinking more than the typical person. Because thinking is how you plan to get yourself into positions where you feel good, but you still need to be connected to that grounded notion of what it means to feel good versus feeling bad. And I think when you're in that grounded state, certain ideas emerge. One thing that emerges is that happiness is actually a lot simpler than I originally thought. I used to think in terms of, I need to accomplish all these goals to be happy, or I need to have this kind of relationship to be happy, or I need to experience this kind of art to be happy, right? And it's really a lot simpler than that. I mean, those things are part of it, but if you don't have any of that, then there's still this fundamental question of, well, what's your baseline? What's your baseline happiness? And your baseline happiness doesn't exist at all if you're just constantly thinking about how to achieve these things. But if you're just sitting grounded in the moment, you'll notice that there's lots of little nice, good sensations. The feeling of the wind against my face, a nice color combination. I've got some lights around me that you guys can see, these color changing lights. Little things like that, that feel so minor when you're constantly overthinking the big things. But when you actually just sit and perceive, it's actually a pretty large amount of joy. And when you have a large amount of baseline joy, then everything else gets easier because you don't have to put so much stress on those individual things. Like, it's still true that I want to accomplish very cool things. It's still true that I want certain kinds of relationships in my life. It's still true that I want to consume certain types of art. But it's no longer true that my life satisfaction is absolutely dependent on all of these things in every single moment in time, right? It's much more flexible and fluid than that now. I think to be able to, I think to be able to achieve such a grounded state, it takes a fair amount of time and a fair amount of introspection, and it can definitely help to have guidance, which I would say I didn't really have a lot of. Although I had a few people talk to me about certain meditation ideas that I think did trickle into my subconscious, and I'm grateful to those people. But you need time and space to be able to connect with yourself in this way. And that's where AI comes back in. I think one of the critical things that keeps people from being able to connect with themselves is that they have that they're basically drowning in responsibilities, right? You got to make your money, you've got to do your errands, all these things. And the more of these things that we can replace with AI, the more space we have to actually connect with ourselves. And so that's why I'm trying to live this vibe coding meditative lifestyle now. I'm trying to create the strongest technology for myself possible to allow myself the space to breathe. And then I want to be able to share that technology with the world. That is what I want out of my coding projects. And that is why I've come back to streaming. And yeah, I think I'm excited to show you guys some of the stuff I've been working on. Jay the Kid, it's good to see you, homie. I remember you from the NASB days. Good luck to you. I appreciate that, man. Hopefully at some point I'll play a little NASB on stream too. I still love NASB. I don't love NASB 2 that much. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not a big fan of NASB 2. NASB 1, great game, one of the best of all time. Kind of sad it's dead. But platform fighters in general are amazing. I'll probably play some on stream at some point. But let me show you guys some of the stuff I've been working on. You think you'll have more time for gaming and hanging out, or are you going hard, focusing on projects still? I think I will have... That's a good question. I think the real answer is that I'm going with the flow. I feel like I have some singular notion in my mind of what meaning means. And I feel like I have more awareness of what my emotional state is at any given time. And between these two things, I make judgment calls as to what decision I'm going to try to make from the current position I'm in to try to get closer to that notion of meaning. Actually, maybe before I get into like what I've been doing vibe coding wise, I should talk about what notion of meaning has felt intuitive through the process of meditation. The things I'm about to say are not scientific. They're not scientifically grounded. I have no evidence for them outside of my own personal experiences with certain emotional states, right? I'm not gonna sit here trying to prescribe this to anyone. I'm just gonna tell you what I think works for me, and no, not what I think works for me. What I feel deep in my gut works for me. That's really how I should phrase it. It's not really what I think works for me. It's more what I feel is the natural drive of what my base self wants to do. To me, I think the meaning of life is to maximize how connected your consciousness is with consciousness at large. A very, very hippy-dippy answer, right? This is the kind of thing you'll hear from like a lot of hippies who have done way too many drugs. But after meditating, it feels very intuitive to me. And I can try to give some justifications as to what about my personal experiences have led me to this conclusion. Part of it is that I was thinking in terms a lot of... So I think it was late last year, I was thinking in terms a lot of... I have all of these different positive emotions that I've experienced. Which one of these is the best positive emotion? Or how should I be thinking about these positive emotions relative to each other in terms of one coherent framework? Right? There's so many different kinds of positive emotions, right? There's the positive experience of being in love. There's the positive experience of accomplishing something. And then there's the positive experience of sticking a needle in you with full of heroin, right? Like these are all, you can think of them all as positive experiences. Like they all bring up some kind of positive feeling, right? And so that raises the question, are some positive feelings better than others? Do these positive feelings have some sort of relationship that is grounded in some kind of truth about what it means to be a satisfied person? Ultimately, what I came to the conclusion was different kinds of positive emotion represent different types of ways in which either parts of your mind are connected to each other, or in which parts of you are connected to parts of other people or other animals. I think when you overthink a lot, different parts of your mind get out of sync with each other. You have all these different goals because you know that they're all relevant to you in some way, but you don't have some ground truth that joins them all together. So vices, success, and relationships, those are at least three examples. I mean, I'm sure there's other examples we could think of. Those are just three that come up to me off the top of my head. I would say loosely, I think in terms of like a multi-tiered framework, right? I think in terms of there's a base level of connection with yourself that I think you can get through meditation. You could potentially get through other things. I don't know how you would get them through other things. Personally, I've only gotten there through meditation, but you connect with yourself and you quiet your mind and you perceive. And that basic connection with yourself is, I think, the root, right? I think of this as like a multi-tier system. Like, that's the root. One tier up is you want the actual sensations you're experiencing to be positive in some way, right? So it's no longer about just connecting with your base sense of self. It's asking, what kind of stimuli does the self want to be happy, right? That connects you with different parts of your mind that, process visual signals, process tactile signals, etc. I'm completely speaking out my ass. Don't like call the science police on me, okay? Like, this is an intuitive framework that I'm talking about. It's more like a psychological construct than something that I'm trying to prescribe as real truth, okay? And then beyond that, beyond connecting with the parts of yourself that want to experience just positive stimuli, well, what happens once you've maxed out on experiencing positive stimuli? What's after that? I think after that is you empathize with another being, and you want that other being to experience positive stimuli. So for me, that's mostly my dog. I don't know if you can see him in the background. He's sleeping. I took him to the park earlier. He had a lot of fun, and now he's knocked out. But I think base level is you connect with your base self. One level up is you connect with the stimuli that make you feel good. One level up is you empathetically connect with your family and community and you want them to feel good. And then one level above that is you want to do things that make the world a better place. You want to do things that make yourself feel connected to broader society as large. I'm using the word you, I actually mean me, right? This is my experiences I'm talking about in terms of how meaning makes sense to me. And all of these fall under this basic framework of you have some base level consciousness and it wants to expand. It's based on this idea that the consciousness you have has a natural drive to expand into richer and more vibrant experiences as long as it maintains harmony with whatever it's connecting with. And I don't know how useful that's going to be for anyone else, this framework, but I found it to be very useful for me. I have found it to make it considerably easier for me to stop overthinking, because now I can really focus on, like, I'm no longer thinking about like what the objective function is. I think I have an objective function. Now it's just a matter of finding the best strategy to solve the objective function. And that can be done at a more intuitive level. That can be done in a more flow way. The ways in which I want to connect with society at large the most is through building the technology and creating the art that I think resonates the most with me, and then sharing it with the world on the assumption that if it resonates with me, it's going to resonate with other people. And I think that's probably a good segue into talking about what coding projects I've been working on. So let's go ahead and switch gears here. Yo, what's up, PugX? When is the world tour? When esports has money in it again, that's when the world tour is, PugX. You should host a world tour. It's good to see you, man. All right, so I've got my stream overlay here with all 4 of my monitors. I got 4 monitors here, and something I think about a lot is how do we vibe code as well as possible? How do we use these brilliant, powerful LLMs to get and actually like make the most out of them. Because I think a lot of people kind of use LLMs naively, right? They'll just kind of like throw random projects at it and maybe not think about the bigger picture of how do we get these vibe coding LLMs to be as accurate as possible over the long term as possible across as many projects as possible with the most productivity possible. And that's what really interests me, right? I want to really, really maximize the productivity we get out of our coding projects. So the really obvious thing, right, is if you want to be very productive with vibe coding, you do a lot of projects, right? It's not like you're just doing one project at a time. If you're focusing on a single project at once, then you're fundamentally bottlenecked by whatever the LLM is doing. Ideally, you have a whole bunch of different projects that you're working on, each of which is like helpful in some way, right? But then the question becomes, how the heck do you manage that many projects, right? And so this has been sort of my initial focus with getting into vibe coding maximization. I don't know what you want to call it. Vibe coding maximization. That's what we'll call it. How do we actually handle so many projects? Because this is not really something people do, right? It's kind of something managers do, right? It's not really something engineers do that much. Like typically when you're an engineer, you've got a 2 or 3 projects at work that you're focusing on, right? That your boss has assigned you or whatever. You're not trying to push 6, 7, 10 projects at once because it's insane. That's a ridiculous thing to do. You can't split your brain into that many pieces and do it if you're doing all the coding. Right? But if we have LLMs doing our coding for us, then we need to start thinking in terms of, okay, we want to have a lot of agents working for us so that we can have the best results as quickly as possible. And so that requires a bit of a paradigm shift, right? And so we had to think in terms of, okay, what do we need to actually accomplish this? He's code maxing? Absolutely. Maybe that's what I should call it. I'm code maxing. So one thing that obviously helps a lot if you have multiple projects is multiple monitors. So I've got 4 monitors here. That's why I've got 4 monitors on my stream overlay. But multiple monitors by itself is really not enough. You'll find very quickly that it's very annoying to keep craning your head all over the place. And first of all, it's only 4 monitors. I mean, it's a bottleneck of 4 projects. That's incredibly lame. Who only wants to work on 4 projects at once? I think that's weak. I think that's a weak, pathetic thing to do, only focusing on 4 projects at once. And so the question then becomes, how do we focus on more projects at once? And so one thing we can think about is the virtual desktop system that Windows has. Windows has something called virtual desktops. I'm not going to show it on stream because I don't know if it's going to screw up OBS and all of my other tech going on. But for those of you who don't know what virtual desktops are, basically you can imagine that you've got like certain programs up on your monitor, like I've got OBS right now up on my monitor on my main screen. And maybe I want to have an entirely different desktop that only has Firefox open, or only has maybe a certain kind of, maybe only has like programs related to a certain coding project open, right? So these are what virtual desktops are. If you're on Windows right now, you can like try this out. You can use I think it's Alt Tab or maybe Windows Tab. It's one of those. And you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Now, virtual desktops on Windows really suck if you have multiple monitors. They're awful. I'm going to tell you exactly why they're awful. It's because every virtual desktop on Windows considers all of your monitors as one space. It doesn't think of your monitors as distinct spaces, which is very, very aggravating when you're managing a lot of projects, right? Like, let's say I want to bring up a certain project on my screen right here. With the way Windows workspaces or Windows virtual desktops are set up, if I try bringing up something on my monitor right here, my main monitor, the big one on my stream overlay, it's going to change all of my other overlays too because they're all considered connected to the same space. That's pretty lame, I think. Really big headache when it comes to Windows. So one of the projects I've been working on that I will be releasing probably very, very soon, I think it's pretty much ready to release, it's called Cerberus. Excuse me. It's called Cerberus. Cerberus is a program that I wrote. I love this vibe coding age. I wrote this code. And And this gives us a way to have effective virtual desktops that are only one monitor each. So let me explain how it works. You can see in the lower right corner. You can see in the lower right corner I have a Windows update message. We're going to close that out for a second. You can see in the lower right corner there's this 10, right? You see this 10, guys, and this like cyan border around my monitor. And if you look closely at the other 3 monitors I have up, you'll see little cyan numbers in the lower right corners, right? I've got 2, 6, and 1. Okay, set up right now. So the idea is that we have 20 different workspaces, and to each one we're going to assign different windows based on whatever's logical, essentially. So perhaps I'll have all the I'll have all the windows related to project number 1 in workspace 11. I'll have all the programs related to project number 2 in workspace 12. I'll have all the projects related to workspace number 3 in workspace 13, etc. And now the question is, can we just swap quickly between these workspaces? And that is what Cerberus is designed to do. So let's say I want to bring up, I'll bring up the actual the terminal I have for working on Cerberus itself. So I'm going to use Control-Alt-1, which will swap my current desktop to, my current workspace number 10 is going to turn to workspace number 11. And yeah, as you can see, it just entirely swapped it out. This is my window that I have for working on Cerberus. This is Claude, for those of you who want to know what LLM I use. I'm a big fan of Claude. I'm not really a big fan of other LLMs. I know some people swear by them. My personal experience is that Claude is way better than ChatGPT or Grok or any of these. I really like Claude a lot. Especially the newest version of Claude is very, very good, I think. But yeah, so like with a single hotkey, I'm able to just entirely take away whatever I was looking at and just focus on whatever project I care about now. But what if I want to go to project number 2? Like, what if I want to go to this to-do list app that I'm working on, which I'll get to in a second? Control-Alt-2, take us to workspace 12, and look at this. We have a different window up that's just entirely dedicated to this. What if I want to swap the windows, right? Like I've got Tidal over here, my music playing software, right? What if I want to bring that up on my main monitor for whatever reason? Well, then it just swaps the monitors. Real simple, right? And this has increased my productivity so much. This has increased my productivity an incredible amount. It's much easier for me to keep track of all the projects I'm working on. I'm going to bring back OBS. Yeah. This has made it much, much easier for me to keep track of all the projects I'm working on. It was such a nightmare before, just moving all of these windows around, trying to keep track of all of these different terminals and all of these different VS Code windows with my code in it. And now it's much, much simpler because everything is just designated to its own workspace. Each workspace is one monitor big, and it just saves that information later if you don't need it right now. Like, let's say I don't want to look at OBS right now. So let's switch back to workspace 11, right? So OBS is gone, right? But it's going to remember this. If I do Alt-Shift-W, we can take a look at exactly what is assigned to each workspace. I don't know why it's doing that, but you can see over down on workspace 10, it's still saved my OBS. And I've got all these other workspaces that have all these other projects going on. And now it's much easier for me to organize all this information and not get confused. A lot of the overhead of just switching between projects is gone because of this program. And so I'm really excited about it. I'll be releasing it pretty soon. I think anyone who wants to take vibe coding seriously and do a lot of different projects, as long as you have at least 2 monitors, I would definitely recommend using Cerberus. I think it absolutely boosts your productivity a lot. If you only have 1 monitor, it's not useful for you. I'll be real. The built-in virtual desktops are fine for that. But if you got multiple monitors, then Cerberus really, really helps your productivity a lot, I think. I want to show you guys the other main workflow tool I've been working on. So we now have a way of like looking at whatever project we want across all of these different projects we're looking at. But that by itself, that gets us so far. But one of the really difficult things about working on a lot of different projects at once is simply context switching between them. I go from project 1 to project 2. Shit, what was I working on? What was the next step to take? I don't remember. I had to rack my head, think about what I was doing. And that's like a big source of inefficiency, right? That's a lot of inefficiency. And so, one of the main apps I've been working on is a to-do list app that is specifically designed for maximizing multitask productivity. I think a lot of to-do list apps are maybe geared towards certain other situations depending on what specific people want. In this case, it's very specifically geared towards multitask efficiency. So let's bring up this program. For now, it's called MinFlow. I'll probably change the name at some point. It just stands for Minimalist Workflow. This is my to-do list app. At some point, I'll release it. It's not quite ready for release yet, but at some point, I'll release it. The way this works is you can think of each of these. First of all, each of these is kind of like a sticky note. If you've ever used a sticky note app before, you can think of each of these as kind of like a sticky note. But it's not just a sticky note. It's much cooler than that. Each of these things is a deck of sticky notes. Think like a deck of cards. Why is that interesting? Because for each deck, this view only shows us the very top card of the deck. Now you're probably asking, what the heck do I mean by cards and decks? Well, I'll explain what I mean by cards and decks. A deck is a project, and a card is a task to take in that project. When you have a deck of these cards, you can think of each of these cards as a task in order, or a set of tasks in order to complete to make progress on the project. And so why is this useful for us? Well, when we're only looking at the top card of each of these decks, we immediately are cued into the information on what is the next thing I need to do on this project. Because we don't care about all the other stuff we need to do in the future. All we care about right now for multitask efficiency is what is the next thing I need to do on this project so I can switch quickly between project and project and project. Because this is what I want. I want to be on project 1, tell Claude to do something, switch to project 2, tell Claude to do something, switch to project 3, tell Claude to do something, etc., etc. That's the ideal situation. We want to have lots of these Claude instances going to maximize productivity and minimize our own mental load. And so when we have all of these tasks with all of these different steps to take, being able to hide all the information that is not immediately relevant to us goes a long, long way. So for example, if we take a look at, let's take a look at MinFlow. The current feature that I want to work on next in MinFlow, as you can see on the top of this deck here, I don't know, is this big enough for you guys to see? You should let me know if this is big enough for you guys to see. Hang on, let me bring up OBS on a different window so that I can see chat. When this comes out, I'm using it to rifle shuffle my competitor. Bro, I don't know how you're going to manage that, but if you manage it and put it on video, I'll be very impressed. It sounds like you're trying to do what those chess grandmasters do. Have you seen those chess grandmasters that like set up 10 boards with like a whole bunch of different players, and he's within the same time limit on all these boards, and he's playing all 10 games at once? It sounds like you want to do that for first-person shooters. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I wish you best of luck. So okay, let me make this a bit bigger. Control scroll, amazing technology. So each of these only shows the very top card of the deck. If I want to look at the whole deck, I can click the deck, and over here on the right panel, I can see all the tasks that I want to do eventually. But when at just a glance, I want to be able to see what the next task is. So for MinFlow, the next thing I have to implement in MinFlow is a Control-Z function. What do I mean by Control-Z? Well, if I move something around like this, I don't have a way to undo that. Right? I have to manually move it back. That kind of sucks. So I want an undo function, right? That's on the top of my mind, so I put it on the top of the deck. I've got some other things on my mind, and I put them in the deck as well. When the Control-Z is done, for the sake of argument, I'll complete the stack. Let's pretend Control-Z is done. I complete this top task. And bam, we have the next top card, which is grid snapping. What do I mean by grid snapping? Well, ideally in the future, I would want these sticky notes to kind of all snap to a grid, the way you kind of imagine they do in, you know, a program like Photoshop. I think it's just a nice, clean UI feature that feels good, right? So that becomes the top card of this deck, because that's just the next feature I want to work on. I'm going to undo this real quick, because I in fact have not finished Control-Z yet. But yeah, this gives me an easy way to look at all the different things going on in my life and see what is the next thing I want to do on each of them. And this has dramatically decreased the amount of inefficiency I have switching between projects. And to be clear, when I say projects, I don't only mean coding projects. I, in fact, am doing other things in my life. In fact, that goes back to what I said earlier. The goal of running all these LLMs should be to maximize your productivity while also creating the space for you to actually live, you know? And so I've got these things all over here. These are all my coding projects. These things over here, these are more like life stuff. Chiper's my dog. I've got a daily routine of tasks I have to do for him. I have various meditation practices I want to do. I want to make sure I'm eating well, you know. Over here I have a bunch of sort of like errandy things, because you got to do your errands, right? Over here I have a bunch of like creative things, because I make music, I like to perform, and there's a lot of things that go into that, like, oh, I have to practice my instruments, oh, I have to think about the sound design that I want to implement on my next record, etc., right? So I've got all these different projects going on. In fact, even in the middle here, we can see that I've got stuff about the very live stream that I've been trying to set up for today. In fact, if you take a look, hey, I can actually check this card off. I have set up my multi-stream, look at that. And I've also set up my initial thumbnail and title, look at that. If you're interested in what's in this live stream deck right now, I haven't ordered these, but these are just a bunch of different topics that I eventually wanted to go over on stream because I thought they'd be interesting. Some of them I've obviously already done, and I might go over them again later in more detail. But yeah, this is essentially how MinFlow works. It gives us this deck system that allows us to only look at the most relevant tasks to do for each thing we're doing across a very, very wide variety of things to do. And I think that's really, really important as we get into the LLM era. Now, you might be looking at this and wondering, why are these decks different colors and different shapes and different sizes? That's a great question. Thank you for asking that, VLS. So here's the answer. The idea is to make things as visually apparent as possible. Because the more visually apparent things are, the faster you will switch from task to task. So probably the most obvious example of this is size, right? Some of these decks are bigger than others. Why did I make some of these decks bigger than others? The reason is because I wanted to very clearly convey a notion of priority. The big things are the ones you look at first. They're the ones that really pop out at you. Those are the high priority items, you have to do them. Taking care of my dog, very high priority item. Higher priority than basically anything else in this list. Similar level of priority to taking care of myself, I guess. But like, you guys get what I mean. Like, that's why these three are much bigger than the rest. And then even among these, like, I've got these coding projects where some of them are kind of big, because those are the ones I'm sort of more actively working on. And then some of them are kind of small, because right now they're sort of more in an abstract state of the... How do I want to say this? They're more in an abstract phase of the project, where I'm thinking, okay, I have these ideas for like what I want to do, but I don't know concretely exactly what I want it to look like. I have to think about it a bit more, and it's also not that high priority compared to some of the other stuff I'm doing, so I'm going to make them smaller, because I don't want to think about them as much. I know they're there, but I can filter them out easily. And as you can see, over down here, I have a size filter. So if you only want to look at your high priority projects and you don't want to be flooded with all the noise of all the other random crap you got to do. Look at that. Look at that. Now I've got all these much more high priority items, and I can just focus on those, right? So that's the idea with the size system. The color coding system and shape system are just additional ways to make things more visually apparent so that you can organize information in whatever way suits you. For example, for me, the way I've organized things is I use color to quickly tell me what domain of product I'm looking at. Like, all the red stuff has to do with maximizing AI stuff. Orange is for Chiper, because Chiper's orange. The things that are blue are about sort of my flow state. The things that are purple are about my music creation and just creativity in general. Like that's yellow is about like things related to video games. So like that's kind of how I'm using color coding. You can use color coding in your own way, right? However you see fit. But this makes things stand out to me in a very apparent way. So I can like think about, oh, I spent a lot of my time today focusing on the musical side of me, but I haven't spent a lot of time focusing on the meditative side of me, or whatever, right? And so color coding just gives me an additional way to process all this information. And then shape just gives you one more way on top of that, Like, for example, all of my pentagons, right? All my pentagons are things that are meta improvement, right? Like, all of these things over here, these are my AI projects, but this right here is reading about the state of the art, getting more familiar with what the current best approaches are, etc. Things that will actually sort of meta improve, right? here I've got like a purple pentagon for, oh, I need to practice my instruments. Like, beyond just like performing and producing, you know, I have to like do this upkeep to make sure like, you know, I'm playing my bass well, I'm singing well, etc. Right? So that's why I'm using pentagons in this example. And you can use shapes however you want. You can use colors however you want. You can even use sizes however you want. But this is why we have this color, shape, size system built in. It's to make things as visually apparent as possible, and in combination with the deck top card system, to decrease context switching inefficiency as much as possible. And so Cerberus and Minflow are the two main projects I've been working on. Both are very close to being ready to release. I think Cerberus is pretty much ready to release. I think I just want to like put together like a blog post or something, and then I'll put it out, and hopefully people can have some fun with it. And then hopefully I can release Minflow a bit after that. But one of the reasons I wanted to come back to streaming is because I wanted to showcase the process of using these tools to get as much productivity out of these LLMs as possible in a way that people can watch and learn from and emulate potentially. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary of the tech stuff I've been working on. It's a pretty good summary of where meditation has brought me. I think it's a pretty good summary of why I wanted to come back to streaming and what you guys can expect from this stream in the future. And I think that's probably a good place for me to sign off from now. I took the first step, which is to start. Like I said, I sat in this chair for like 10, 15 minutes, just trying to get all the words in my head sorted correctly. And then I finally convinced myself that that was absolutely the worst possible way to approach this. I finally hit the start button and I just started talking. And next time I stream, we'll start doing some actual programming. We're going to start implementing features in Minflow that are not already there. So Control Z is one, grid snapping is one. And then I want to show you guys the other AI projects that I've started working on, the other tech projects I've been working on. I'm working on 2 different game engines right now, which I think will interest a lot of you who are used to the sort of gaming content from me. One of these game engines is the infamous bot that I was working on for a long period of time. Now, I released it as a Discord game engine, but I never fully released the term and functionality, and I want to use Claude to help me integrate that and test that and do as little of the work myself as possible because that's spaced. So streams are going to be update just chatting streams. I plan to do actual work on streams, probably starting next time, because I want to showcase the process of how all of this works. I'll be doing some programming on stream. I'll be doing some music making on stream. In the future, what I would like to do, I don't really have the tech set up for this yet, but in the future I would like to add cooking streams because I cook a lot. It's a big part of my life now and I love it. I think cooking is so interesting. I think of food as like this multivariable optimization problem that I think is really interesting. Like how do you optimize for your health and for your taste, and for ethics, and for convenience, and for cost, and for variety, all at the same time? That's a difficult problem. That's actually, like, unironically, a pretty hard problem to solve. And so I think that's very interesting, and I think it's very fundamental, right? Like, if we don't eat, we die. It's pretty fundamental, I think. So I would love to do some cooking streams. I need to figure out how to set that up, because obviously this is not a kitchen. I would like to do some streams with Chiper, because Chiper is a big part of my life, and he's awesome. But I need to figure out the technology to do that as well. I would like to do some meditation streams, but I also had to think a bit about how that's going to look. If I'm just sitting here with my eyes closed, it might not be the best content. So I'll think a little bit about that. But in general, there's all these different aspects of my life that I think all come together in a very cohesive way, largely due to the combination of LLMs and meditation. And so I'm hoping to introduce that sort of variety to this channel eventually. Mystery Soul, it's good to see you, man. It's good to see you. Hope you've been doing well in all the games you've been playing. Vegan cooking means you got a different situation to work with. Yeah, absolutely. It does add an extra constraint for sure. And you know, I think that extra constraint scares a lot of people away from doing something that they might otherwise want to do. So being able to show ways of making these things convenient, I think would be a pretty cool thing to do. That OBS bot Sorry, what did he say, Tech? That OBS bot works with Wi-Fi. That OBS bot works. Oh, are you talking about the OBS bot camera works with Wi-Fi, by the way, to help all your Typer and cooking streams. So you're talking about the gimbal. So TechBalls a few days ago sent me this link to a camera with some kind of gimbal technology where it automatically tracks you. And I haven't bought that camera yet, but I think that'll be a very useful thing for these kinds of streams. I think that's something I want to set up, Tech, for sure. Mr. Soul says, I've been doing all right. Hope I'm doing well as well. Always nice seeing at Rivals events from time to time. Dude, it's always good to be there. I'm glad you're doing well, man. Yeah, I'm doing great. Like I said, these things have really changed my life, and I think it's a big part of why I wanted to come back to streaming and making content. And yeah. So next time, guys, we're going to actually get into the weeds. We're going to do a lot of vibe coding. Because like I showed you, I got a lot of different projects I'm working on. I just showed you the very tippy top of it, these two, because these are the two that I think of as like the meta projects for enabling all the other vibe coding that we're going to do. But yeah, we're going to do a whole bunch of intense vibe coding on stream, probably the next time I stream. I'm hoping to bring back the tournament bot, and once that bot's done, I would like to at least help other people run tournaments again if I'm not going to do it myself, because, you know, I still love fighting games. I still love fighting game tournaments. And I want the FGC, I want the fighting game community to succeed, even if I'm not the one doing the TOing. And yeah, I would love to make this technology work for them. And so yeah, I've got all these different projects I want to do. So yeah, next time I'm on stream, we will get into the weeds, do a lot of different vibe coding, and then we'll see from there. We'll see from there what we're going to do. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys tuning in. It's good to see a lot of familiar names in chat. And it's good to be back. I haven't streamed in quite a long time. Has it been 2 years, Tech? Maybe it's been 2 years. So it's good to be back, and I will see you guys next time. Y'all take care.